I've been saying this exact same thing since 2018 and the release of Scott Snyder's Justice League series, that this entire location the stories take place in are a bold, new, rewrite multiverse that is not the original DC multiverse that we used to call the mainstream. It's a brand new one, because the authors said so repeatedly in interviews and even in the comics. So let me try to simplify this war.
Crazy with this one. But with 6, I mean, the things that happen at the end are pretty bold, you know, and definitely rewrite a lot of sort of mythology of the DCU. And I think ultimately this year I really fell in love again going back and looking at a lot of Kirby and a lot of sort of seminal.
There's a group out there who hate Final Crisis and all of the comics of the older era, including Jack Kirby's creation mythology and Neil Gaiman's version and the creation story in Michael Carey's Lucifer 2000 version of creation. The Presence, or Lucifer, created things, or in Final Crisis' story, Captain Allen finds out that existence was not created, but emergent, and based on the Ein Sof of the Kabbalah, not being created by anything or anyone, but is self-emergent and popped in with no designer. All that exists was inside of this tube, which represents the totality of existence and all things, all the is, the overvoid. During Final Crisis personified this as a suit of armor named the Thought Robot, the Cosmic Armor Superman, and lots of fans hated this with a fury akin to 10 billion suns gone nova. In 2017-ish, the Metal series arrives and JLA 2018, soon after, where we learn of Perpetua. A new creation story was told here, and things are very different. Fans kind of went wild with this, but I feel like the OG older fans knew better on how comics and continuities worked, which is a staple in the multiversity story told by Grant Morrison, where all the worlds on the map are literal meta-author canons and not just regular universes. So we all fought for years on this. Which characters were at the top of the hierarchy? What's the real origin of things, as it was always there in front of us the entire time? It's just that a lot of content creators censored this from you and didn't want you to see it, causing untold millions of fans to get the wrong data and go home with a totally abused version of the DCU narrative. Let me simplify. During Superman Beyond, the flaw of all things was sealed over and locked forever. It was personified as a suit of armor, and this armor, the embodiment of all in the flaw, fought the corrupted values of the Overvoid that were originally split off. This was Mandrak, or Dax Novu. After this, the multiversity is Grant's last stand, the final bygone era of the last generation of the DCU. Grant said it's over after this, and Grant is not responsible for anything in the future coming from others. Grant's canon is ended, and its values include the Jack Kirby Classic era, the Gaiman run, and the Lucifer 2000 run eras. Generally considered all of these old school values and continuity historical accounts inside of this literal bottle, sealed forever, and the key has been vaporized. Metal, Death Metal, Incarnate, Future State, Dark Crisis, and Absolute happen after all of that, and we're told that the creation mythology of the DCU is now this. What fans missed is that the DCU is moving away from what was the old mainstream main multiverse of DC narratives and stories. It was quite literally locked and ended. Nick Swotan begins to dream his new layout of the cosmology after Final Crisis and into the multiversity, with a totally different spread of locations in different places now. The cosmology is totally different. After this point, a new multiverse is picked by the DCU that was created outside of the Ori. It's called the Perpetua Multiverse. This is now the new main canon multiverse.
Liar!
If you go read a tie-in issue to Dark Crisis 7, the finale issue of Dark Crisis, called Dark Crisis: The Dark Army, you'll see that the heroes go to Bleed Space, and inside of Bleed is Mar Novu's home and the House of Heroes. Inside of it is the Orrery of Worlds. It's locked and nobody can get in. Dr. Light activates Harbinger, and the AI says they shouldn't have woken her up. If the Dark Army finds them, and if they breach the Orrery of Worlds, the Great Darkness can then infect everything at once. So of course the Dark Army appears right after and attacks the Orrery and the rest of the heroes. Included in that Dark Army is Calvin Ellis, Captain Carrot, and Dr. Multiverse. Dr. Multiverse is the girl who gave the exposition of the Great Darkness and the origin of the multiverse during Incarnate 4. Dr. Light begins to feel connected somehow, and something important is about to happen. While the Dark Army can't get into the Orrery, she can. It opens the doors for her and allows her entry. She explains how she realized how connected and important she is, and finds that it was her that was the light that the Great Darkness screamed at that then caused the birth of the multiverse, debunking the idea the light is the overvoid. It's not, it was Dr. Light. After this, the Dark Army is purified, and she explains that the Orrery itself unlocked her powers and gave her what she needed to kill the Great Darkness just one issue later in the finale issues of Dark Crisis 7. The Orrery of Worlds is responsible for the defeat of the Great Darkness. Without it, Dr. Light wouldn't have had the power to break the darkness in the finale. So what does this mean? The Orrery of Worlds is locked forever, the paradise of the old history of the DCU and the capstone forever that anchors the entire story of the DCU. From within this Orrery, you can access any and all multiverses that exist or ever will exist, just as the original plot of what the Orrery was said to contain. However, it's going to remain locked permanently. It represents the old generation of the DCU from Morrison's era and back. During the pre-2008 period, this Orrery represented the main DCU multiverse and omniverse. After 2017, DC wants those stories retired and rested. As Scott Snyder says, the Metal Series multiverse is a bold, new rewrite of the DCU creation mythology.
Neck and neck crazy with this one. But with 6, I mean, the things that happen at the end are pretty bold, you know, and definitely rewrite a lot of sort of mythology of the DCU. And
this new multiverse has its own history, its own creator. It's the foundation for the next 80 years of the DCU story, as the Orrery is the prime foundation for all stories in the last 80 years. Do you get it? It's the tether point, the anchor for all future states of the DCU. As we think the Omniverse and greater Omniverse of the Perpetua Metal series is the totality of all things, we learn that isn't true in Dark Crisis 4 and also Flashpoint Beyond. At the end of Death Metal 7, Lex Luthor says the new multiverses and universes are sort of localized, personal omniverses. And fans ignored that and ran with it being the entire sum, akin to the innards of the Orrery. All existence in a literal sense is not what the new multiverse and omniverse meant. Lex said it was localized. The actual omniverse is the Orrery, the anchor point to all future multiverses that DC Comics chooses to be their new mainstream canon in the future. The Perpetua multiverse is not the old canon mainstream. That's the Orrery and all within it, forever allowed to rest after earning their peace after 80 years of comic history.
You know, we remember in Marvin George's history of the DC universe, there's the hand that creates the universe, but that's no longer continuity. It's now Perpetua and her sons, but how can we make this work so there's still that image somewhere in there? So that's part of the challenge, is how do you make all those pieces fit as closely as you can so nobody feels left behind?
This is what was considered the mainstream multiverse, and all the comics we read here or in Elseworlds. After the Metal series, the new mainstream canon multiverse is the Perpetua creation. This doesn't undo the old canon. It's still there in the Orrery, but you can't ever see it again. It's allowed to rest forever, and it was placed in a new House of Heroes to be a reminder for the amazing inspirational stories of old that the new multiverse revision characters need to be inspired. It will remain there as a beacon of hope, of the light of the past, forever inspiring the new House of Heroes. Fans miss this and continue to miss it years later as the authors push for a new canon multiverse with a new historical account that is not the same as what's inside of the Orrery of Worlds. Calvin Ellis and the original Local 52 are still inside that orrery. Captain Carrot and Superman and the original JLA are all in the tube. They earned their piece. They're going to be in there locked forever. Outside of this is the Perpetua new canon variant of Calvin Ellis trying to get in and infect it. What is inside is not the same as what is outside. The Perpetua-verse multiverse and creations on the other areas of the local omniverse that Lex mentioned are all outside of the tube. Lex then goes on to say in Dark Crisis 4 that this idea of the omniverse is false and a lie, and it's not a real omniverse. Afterward, in Flash Big Bang, Flash deep dives this and finds the exterior areas are the lost worlds from Crisis on Infinite Earths that were deleted and revoked out of the orrery. So there are 3 variants of Calvin Ellis. There's the original inside of the orrery, the original Earth 23 of the original Local 52. Then there's the Perpetua multiverse Calvin Ellis, infected by the Great Darkness. And then there's a variant Crisis on Infinite Earths Calvin Ellis that exists outside of the tube and also outside of the Perpetua multiverse that the Flash discovered outside of the Perpetua multiverse when he was investigating in the issues of Flash Big Bang. But the comics pretty much rectify that this orrery of worlds in the Dark Crisis Dark Army issue is referencing the old era of the DCU that's forever locked off and inspired Dr. Light with the light power she needed to rinse the Great Darkness. Because she needed inspiration in the form of old stories and respecting the old era one last time before the DCU moves onward to another 80 years in a different mainstream multiverse. If you understood this, please let me know in the comments, and if you found some clarity on the topics of the DC narrative. I appreciate your time and your likes and your subscriptions, so they mean so much to me, and thanks for watching.